Find the button. Okay, we are here. We are live. And today, this is the Birdcast, and we're talking about tools, the insider's guide to podcasting tools, which is so fun to talk about, right? I mean, we all talk a lot more about the fact that the tools are not what's important. The content is what's important. The audience is what's important, but the tools are so fun to talk about. So maybe we should start by introducing ourselves. Paula, do you want to just let people know who you are?
Sure. I like this look that I've got going on, as if I might be helping you with your mutual funds in any moment.
It does
But my
look
name
like
is,
that.
yeah, that's where my career started, was at Franklin Templeton.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, where I worked on an 800 number. But anyway, let's go back to podcasting. I'm Paula Jenkins, and I am a producer and a consultant, a strategist. I was actually in advertising, digital advertising, for 15 years before I started this journey of podcasting. And I have 2 of my own shows, and I work with clients. And, I think we can announce this. I'm speaking at She Podcasts, which, yay! I
What's
can't
the
wait.
topic? What's the topic? This is a live conference. For anybody who doesn't know, She Podcast
Yes.
Live is going to be a live in-person conference, which is so exciting. Yeah, what's your
Yes.
topic?
I'm talking, look, I can use this. I'm talking about this, which was my book that I wrote this year, but I don't think they use the name Jumpstart Your Joy. They actually use the name like Find Your Joy, which I'm fine with. Like, I'm sure it's because they don't want to really promo my show, but it's about the heart-centered ways to find joy in the messy middle, which has kind of been what we've all been dealing with this last year. So it's more of the self-help, personal journey side, which I'm also really excited that they're doing this year.
Well, and you
because
also have Jumpstart Your Podcast.
Joy of Podcasting and
Joy of
Jumpstart Your
Podcasting.
Joy. Yeah,
Yes.
are my 2 shows.
Yes. So you also have a podcasting show. So I'm going to introduce myself.
I'm glad.
So I'm also speaking at She Podcast Live, and I'm actually kind of excited because this is a totally new talk, and it's only sort of about podcasting. It's really about making creative breakthroughs, right? And it's about using this tool, which I discovered, of like setting yourself challenges. Like for me, it was my run every day or post a video for 30 days, whatever it is, but creating the idea that you can create these challenges yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use them to manufacture creative breakthroughs or personal breakthroughs without having to like pay some coach or consultant a lot of money. You can kind of create these yourself. And then I have all these different tools that I have figured out or heard studies or read about that are like more likely to make you successful. And so that's kind of a new thing. But my intro, I am a podcast producer and consultant. I'm a podcasting coach. I work with people who have podcasts already, but like they're just not getting enough out of it, whether it's elevating your craft, becoming a better interviewer, being the host that you want to be, that people admire, getting the kind of guests you want, but also looking at sort of tactically, strategically, what are your business goals for the podcast? Kind of digging into all of that and helping come up with a plan that balances your goals and your resources to really get effective. So that's what I do. My background is video production and messaging for 30 years and podcasting for 7. And I have my own podcast, the Grounded Content Podcast. But today, now we should get right into tools, right? Because I feel like we've been talking for about 5 minutes without even addressing
Cut to the chase.
our topic yet. So we have a list of tools, and we're going to talk about tools for recording, tools for editing, tools for transcription, tools for promotion, for project management, for client review, and for scheduling. And these are all tools that Paula and I use day in, day out in a professional basis. And so, maybe we just jump right in and talk about recording tools. What do you use for recording?
Well, I mean, it's also known as a DAW, a digital audio workbench, but it's Audacity. It's free. You can use it on your Mac. You can use it on your PC. I like that when I'm recording just myself, because obviously it's just here on this computer. I can't record. Well, I mean, unless somebody was in the room, but nobody's been in this room with me for a year and a half. So that's my favorite local tool. And then I think we share a second one, which is, do you want to announce it?
Yeah, sure. So I've been using Riverside.fm. And so for us, for Spartan Up, the podcast that I produce,
Yeah.
We did, hundreds and hundreds of episodes, and we recorded them all in person. And my background was video production. And so I was using all the tools that I brought over from the video world.
Yeah.
And so when the pandemic hit and we couldn't be in person, at first we jumped to Zoom. And one of the things, people complain a lot about Zoom, especially podcast editors. It has a really bad reputation. They complain. But the great thing about Zoom is if you have guests that are not tech savvy, that are not used to doing this kind of thing, most of them can handle Zoom. And you can record split tracks if you're willing to do it.
If you know the settings, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't need to record in the cloud. So it's actually, Zoom is actually a really good tool. It works, and it works for your guest. But Riverside FM I like because it records locally. And so if I'm interviewing Paula's side of the interview gets recorded on her end, mine gets recorded on my end. So if we have a bad internet connection, we're still going to have a clean recording. Yeah. The other good thing about Riverside is that it also records video, which we have all of our episodes of video and audio. So I've been pretty happy with that. I know a lot of people use Squadcast, and Squadcast started out as a podcast app and has added video. I don't know if that's still in beta. Have you used Squadcast?
I haven't, and I haven't. Is Zencaster another one? I feel like it does
another one, yeah. And Clearstream, I think.
Clearstream, yeah. No, I haven't. And Anchor also does an all-in-one, but I don't know. Does it do video?
Not last.
I think it's just audio. Yeah.
The hard part about all these things, I recorded this like mini course for my clients that was just, I call it nuts and bolts, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just like how to pick your microphone and what recording technology and hosting and all that. But I was so hesitant to record any of it because all these apps are upgrading their functionality like constantly. Yeah. And so you say like, well, this pro and con of these two apps, and then they may not apply anymore. So
yeah. Well, and I feel like more and more people are talking about Riverside, and my experience with that has been excellent. Even when there's been a problem with the recording, they do a internet-based recording. I happened to lose one of a very a guest that was like probably my biggest guest ever, Sonia Renee Taylor, and it didn't take, and she couldn't get it to upload. Bless her heart, she tried a million times. And then I looked through it and found that they do an internet recording, and it's not great, but it was sure as heck better than nothing. So I do give them those credits. I also, here's another one. I don't really always recommend it, and they've changed their name. They used to be Uber Conference, which people would confuse with the Uber, the rideshare, but they are now Dialpad, I think. But I also like having a backup that's just, it's nothing fancy, but if you truly can't get another date with a guest and that's the time they have, give them the dial in and they can call and it records.
Right.
I mean, then you're single tracked, but again,
it's better
not the
end
nothing.
Of the world. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's better than nothing. Exactly. And then the other one is Skype. I actually just was on a podcast that was recorded using Skype, and that was like Steve Worley. Is that his name? It's like it's called Life Skills That Matter. It was it was a really good interview. I mean, he did a great job interviewing me. I don't mean to toot.
You did a wonderful job.
I did an amazing job. I was just amazing. But he used Skype, which is kind of old school, but it sounded great.
Well, but the game changer with Skype was they didn't used to have a native recording tool built in, right? So you had to like download Pamela or Ecamm. Pamela literally ate 7 of my episodes in a row and I look back at the files. This was year 1, and I was like, oh. Got to call all those people back because it didn't record any of them, and it said it was. But anyway,
and I want to throw the question out there: if you're watching or you're listening, what is your favorite podcast recording app? And I'd love to know why, because it seems like everybody has different requirements, different pros and cons, different needs. And then while you're thinking about that, we're going to go into. Should we go into editing apps next? It's hardly even tools. It's like your
bread and butter. Yeah, like you can't really do it without the editing tools.
Right.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, so what do you use for editing?
Well, Audacity. I'm self-taught. I don't even, and I love it because since it's open source, although it was recently bought, I think, by somebody, and then there was a big scandal that somehow they're collecting our information. I don't believe that to be true. If you look into it a little bit more, they just had to put up a T's and C's, terms and conditions. So they were in line with the rest of the industry. But so I like Audacity, which I sometimes call Audible, and then I sound like a buffoon
Can I
because
just tell you,
yeah,
well, I heard you correctly. You said T's and C's, but in my head, I
yeah,
thought T's, Tease, and C's as in like,
the
seize,
high C's,
grab something. And I was like, it's a
seize the day.
T's and C's. I thought that sounds like some kind of marketing term. Like you tease them and then you seize them. I don't know.
But it is, I mean, but I abbreviated it, so it probably
You did.
did.
You were,
Um,
yeah, the T's
but
and
yeah,
C's. Right. Yeah.
Audacity. And then the number 2 backup for me is, I'm going to say this wrong. I always say Descript, but I've heard other people say Descript. And I find that to be a really excellent way to edit. I could get into that more, but it does pull tracks together and make them a sequence, and you can edit with a transcript instead of just listening. Now, there's some things it doesn't do. It doesn't clean up audio very well, so that always goes through Audacity first. I feel like it's still it's a tool that I'm using in the tandem with another tool, but it's pretty slick. They know what they're doing, those
They know it.
guys.
Yeah. I have the editor that I work with on my show, Chris Zarnock. She's been editing my grounded content show, and she uses Descript, Descript. She uses that, and at least for the like a content pass. And this is something that's really interesting. Coming from a video editing background, the terminology of editing is really different in audio editing than video editing. Like video editing is like taking the pieces and moving them around and putting them together, right? Which is not usually what people mean when they say editing in audio. And then like, I almost think like color correction is more like what people think of as audio editing, which is the EQ part.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. Well, and I think there are a lot of producers, and myself included, that I do a content pass on everything. Somebody sends me a file. Is the story in the right order? I mean, because sometimes even people that are recording solo shows, from an outsider perspective, you can see, well, this story would be better if this part went under this part. And so I think there's Descript is really good for that. And if somebody knows how to pronounce this that actually knows the company, please
that would be
weigh
super
in
helpful
for us. Yeah,
Yes,
if you work
please.
for Descript, we want to hear from you.
Now I don't even know. I can't even say the word anymore. It's too hard.
Well,
So
I'm just going to keep saying Descript.
I use Adobe Audition for my editing software.
Yes.
And the reason I use it, honestly, I don't use 90% of the functionality in it, but because again, I come from a video editing background. So I use Premiere that's actually the primary editing software I use. And I'll use Audition more and more for EQ or for voiceovers just to clean things up. But most of my editing happens in Premiere. And I like the fact that it's a whole suite. So I do graphics and I do, I can move back and forth between all the different Adobe apps. And they're all, I mean, honestly, when I started using Audition, I already was paying the subscription that had Premiere. So basically Adobe Audition was like a free app. And I don't, there are people like Carrie Eric who have a course in Audition that is like mind blowing. I did one of her short courses and probably sped up my editing by 50%.
Amazing. And she's Yo-Yo Podcasting. Is that her company? If people are like, who is that?
Or no?
Yeah. It's Yeah. Podcast.
Oh, God.
Sorry, Carrie. On the fly. We're close.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
All right. Well, and can we jump in here though? I realized, okay, stop the press. We also have a category that you and I didn't even talk about.
Yeah.
Which is because both of us do produce shows that start with video and then go to audio in addition, right? Like, does Spartan Up go to audio after you guys do a video of it?
Wait, I don't know what you mean.
Well, you take the raw video and then do you produce it in an audio and a video format for export?
Oh, got it. Yeah, you know what I do? This may or may not be interesting to people, but to streamline. So in order to get, like, we have a large volume of content and we do it in a super efficient way, right? And so that's part of is like, how do we get like the best content in the most places, the most of it with the least taxing of our resources. So what we do for Spartan Up is I have a canned little graphic open, super short. I have a bunch of plug and play pieces, but I've made them all so they work in audio and video. Amazing. So I literally edit the episode in Premiere.
Mhm.
I'll do like once it's in Premiere, you can put the audio tracks in and click on it and say open in Audition. So I'll open if I need to. Sometimes I don't even need to, but I'll open that track in Audition if it needs like a quick pass of like cleanup or there's background noise or something like that. I'll do that there. And then that automatically updates in the video timeline. And so
Yeah.
I will edit the whole episode together in the video timeline with, my opening soundbite, and then I'll record a voiceover intro. I put my sponsor pieces. I do all that in Premiere, and then
Mhm.
I export. I export the final mix of audio, and then I do a leveling pass once it's all like put together and mixed, and then put it back into the video, and then I export that. But I basically do the
Amazing.
exact
Yeah.
same show in both. Like I
Sure.
export the final episode for audio and video out of Premiere.
Amazing. And I
So that
ask this because, like, in case anyone watching is like, why are these two going on about this? It's workflow. But my show, well, not my show, but the other show that I produce, the Egg Whisperer show, we also are, I call it video native because we start with the
yes, right.
video in Riverside, or sometimes we're recording in a studio when we can. And then we do a video edit, export that sound or that audio, and then we edit the audio.
Now, here's a question. If you export it afterwards,
Mhm.
what about music and stuff? Because you don't want to apply the same like EQ settings. The only
Right.
thing I do that's the same across the board is the leveling at the end, like the final leveling pass.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I don't want to put any kind of like, like a sound removal or noise removal on the music or like, rich in the voice or anything like that. I don't want to apply that to music. So when you you export your audio, or do you just, so Riverside, you can download
Right.
an audio file, or do
If
you
we've had
actually
to, since we go video first, all of our shows are aired first in video format, and
like
then
live
several
or
weeks later, the
okay.
audio
Yeah.
comes.
Yeah.
But to do that, we do pull the audio out of the video because there's probably been edits in that level, and we don't want it to be a totally separate or different show.
Yeah.
So we take whatever we've done to the video, and then yes, we remove the music,
Okay.
and then edit it, and we pull out filler words and weird gaps that
Oh, you
sometimes
do?
translate.
See,
Yeah,
I don't that's like our show, we don't pull out the filler words and stuff because it would be a jump cut in the video and we have the same
yeah,
content. And nobody minds. Like nobody has ever said like there's too many filler words in this show. I don't like it.
yeah. That's interesting. I'd love to hear what people think about that if they're doing both as well, like other other
Yeah.
editors,
I know we
other
got pretty in
producers.
the weeds here.
We did. Let's
It was
keep
great
going.
for us. So next on the list, wait a minute, we have Adobe Audition, Premiere. Oh, the one thing I had in my notes about Premiere, which is kind of cool, is Premiere, the latest upgrade or update has a transcription tool with captions. So you don't need like an external app anymore to do those like a captioned video using Premiere. In
Fancy.
fact, you could even just bring in an audio track into Premiere and make like your own audiogram basically, because it transcribes. It will transcribe everything and super the titles on the video. It's pretty cool.
That is cool.
All right, so next tool, transcription.
Yes.
And you're going to talk about it while I make a new title because I didn't prepare.
Okay. So for transcription, I've tried a few. When I need a transcript that we're literally going to put on our website, because sometimes that's how show notes go, is it's really a transcript of the conversation. We have a human. It's not
I
a
love it.
tool, it's a human. And she's been great. I made the producer executive decision that my time cleaning up something, because Descript also will give you a transcript, but it's based, so rev.com and Descript use the same back engine for transcription.
Right.
And it's not perfect. And that's why if you're using Rev,
But doesn't Rev correct it? They include
they have
people,
a human.
right? Yeah.
But I prefer using a human that knows our content, and she also
Mm.
cleans up all the other stuff.
So do you send her the Descript or Descript, and
I just send her
then
the audio and let her have it. Like whatever
and
she
she
wants
has
to
to like
do,
type. Oh, she
it's
does
all
her own thing.
hers.
Okay, got it, got it. Because she's not sitting there like listening
Yeah,
and
I
typing
don't know
like in
what
the
her
old days.
magic is.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
She might be,
So
but
so what do you use? You use them for show notes primarily because I thought that might be interesting. Is like how you use your transcripts probably impacts what you need them to be like. You said you use them in show
yeah,
notes.
I mean, it depends. Sometimes, so that's a great question. So sometimes we take the Descript transcript when we're looking at maybe an interview that's been, there's a few that are rough and like some of the questions didn't flow well or the answer just was nothing. And so sometimes I will use that rough transcript out of Descript to go through and do a content pass because I mean, I guess this is all stylistic, but I don't feel like the answers that didn't land very well or that didn't go anywhere, some of those just don't need to be included because they're
Right.
boring.
No, I
And so
agree.
sometimes we do pull that, and we have shifted even in the video edit, um, we've shifted where things are. But that's what I'd use the Descript transcript for. Or if I'm pulling quotes to like just put in an image that we're going to put on social media or whatever. Like I can find them in Descript. It's easier.
Yeah.
But
That's so funny.
the
That's what I do too.
transcription is
Yeah.
yeah.
I use so for Spartan Up, I use it basically to pull quotes and then
Mhm.
you still have to correct them. Like I have gotten myself in trouble by pulling quotes and making a social media graphic and then realizing later that it's not correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I use it to pull quotes. That's the main thing I use it for Spartan Up. And then also if I'm working with like I'll share it with a team, the content team at Spartan that will write an article and it might be handy for them.
Yeah.
But it's uncorrected. We don't publish it. And then for my own personal podcast for grounded content, I use it heavily. And so my editor will do a first content pass, but I'm just a pain and I'm not that great to work with. I'm very particular. So almost no matter what she does, I will put it into Otter and I'll play it through and I'll be like, pull out this part, pull out this part, pull out this part. Not she does a great job, but I'm just like I'm picky. And
Yeah.
so and I'm very wary of wasting my listeners' time. So I
Yes.
really if it's like you said, if it doesn't land or whatever, I'm like, pull it out. If it's not on topic, pull it out. Like within, certain of course a little conversation gets in there. But
Yeah.
so I use it for that. You want to hear a cool thing?
Yes.
I think it's cool. I shot oral histories like 10 years ago with an old timer. He's no longer alive.
Hmm.
And I recorded all these oral histories on video. And I knew somewhere in the like 9 hours of content, there was a story that I really wanted to
Yeah.
find. And so I pulled audio files, put it all in Otter, and then I searched by terms and I found it. And like
So
that
amazing.
saved me listening to 9 hours of content. So that was
Yeah.
another handy way to use transcription.
Yeah. Well, and another way that's totally helpful and that I think is one of the magical places that Descript really shines is each season I do a look back. And sometimes it's a top 10 countdown or whatever, but I try and, highlight a little bit of the audio that we said, like whatever stood out to me. And those episodes would take like 40 hours to compile back before there was Descript. But now that I can just search for, like you're saying, like the term,
Mhm.
I can just pull it. With Descript, you can cut and paste
That's amazing.
you grab, it looks like
Have
a
you
Google Doc and you
edited
just,
video with Descript? Because
I
I hear you
have,
can.
and it's not as easy and it's very resource heavy on your computer, which
Mm,
I don't know why, because it's all cloud-based, so it hasn't been the best thing.
got it.
My
Because
editor
I've
does
been
not use Descript to edit video.
curious about that. Okay. All right. So our next tool selection, we have
Mm,
done recording, right? We had Riverside.fm, Audacity, or the ones you and I used that we mentioned a bunch of others. We talked about editing, Adobe Audition, Adobe Premiere, Audacity, and Descript or Descript. And then transcriptions, Otter.ai, Rev, and humans, and Descript or Descript. And then promotion. We actually have a bunch of tools because that's such a broad one.
it is. The category
Do
is
you
broad.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have the list in front of you? Do you want me
I
to throw
do.
some out there and have you Oh, good. Then you can
Sure.
respond while I write a new card here.
Yeah, I love, I mean, I'll list off the ones I know we both use. Which is Headliner, which started as something else, but now it's the thing that you can use to make audiograms. I'm assuming that's the primary way most people are using it. And so it'll let you can make your own image, then you can upload a little an audio file. Um, it has different things like bars or little pulse things that show that there's audio playing, and you can put in a transcript too if you want. And those are pretty cool. They export as a little video file that you could share on social media or elsewhere. I know they also will do a full export of an entire episode if you want. Have you used it for that, Marion?
Um,
Headliner?
no, I have
No.
not, because we have video for our episodes, but I
Right.
think that
So,
would be really handy if you were, if you recorded your show on audio and you wanted something to put on YouTube. I
right.
don't know that it will do the transcript for the whole. That
I
would
don't
be
think that
tough
it
to
does. You
correct
have to
and
upload
check.
it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would be a lot.
And then the other one that I know we both used is Canva, which is, of course, canva.com. And it's an online image creation tool. It also does some small video pieces, and you can make an animated GIF, and it has some little stickers in there that you can add to stuff. It sounds a lot simpler. I'm making it sound simple and silly, but it's actually
No,
pretty
it's really useful.
powerful.
You know, one of my favorite like marketing, I don't want to say pundit guru, whatever, on LinkedIn people is Jeffrey Cologne. And he had a post the other day. He's like, if you had a marketing department and you had to scale your budget way back, like what one thing would you keep? And he said Canva.
Yeah.
And he was like Canva because you could set up templates that even non-graphic people can update and use. And Canva's pretty handy. I don't use it enough because Adobe Spark is sort of not nearly as good, but it's Adobe's version and it comes free with the Adobe suite.
Yeah.
So I already pay for it. So,
Yeah. And I
but
actually
but
have
I don't think
seen
it's as good as Canva.
no, Canva has become extremely powerful. And I was working in advertising departments 3 years ago, and that exact thing was happening.
Yeah.
Entire departments of people would be like, can you just create me a Canva template, because I don't want to have to go back through you all to
Right.
get this one image that's just copy. Like, I don't need that. So I think it is a game changer in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I used to use Adobe stuff, and now I have a PC and didn't want to pay for the whole thing. And I was like, yes, Canva. Let's see what this does. So
Well,
I
wait,
love it.
PC. That's why one of the reasons I like Adobe is that everything is multi-platform, so I can use it on the Mac or the PC.
I
Right.
know.
So,
I'm just so like I'm so old that I used to have a copy. Not but like
like a
the
DVD, like in those days.
yes, I had a
Yeah.
DVD, I had the
Yeah.
license, and then that
Yeah.
all
Right.
I don't have a
Right.
DVD player even on this computer, so
No, nor do I.
no. So, Canva. And
So
then,
Canva is amazing, right? And Adobe Spark is eh. I've stopped using Headliner pretty much almost completely because Adobe Premiere has the built-in transcription and captioning, which so for me, Headliner was more about the captioning than like the little
oh, interesting.
waveform graphic. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not that interesting. So I have not been using that. What
Yeah.
else do
Well,
we
and
have
I
on
know
here?
Descript will actually now do a headliner audiogram as well. And if you host on Libsyn, we didn't even talk about hosts, which is so funny. Like, we
Yeah,
kind of need a
and
place to put these files, but Libsyn will also, they have some sort of interface with Headliner, and so you can
and with
do it through
Canva.
them.
And with Canva
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
Buzzsprout has an interaction with Canva too.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I really want to know, I saw a post from Libsyn about snippets, which in Libsyn 5, which I haven't tried yet.
I
So that'll be
haven't tried
interesting.
it either.
My phone is rumbling. Okay, I'm
Oh,
not going
no.
to look. Um, so I also have LinkedIn as a podcast promotion tool.
Mhm.
And I think that might be something that's overlooked. I really like sharing podcast stuff, or even like, so not even just saying like, here's a podcast episode, but the things that I learn from the podcast end up being LinkedIn posts in one way or
Yeah.
another.
I think that's helpful. And I am just kind of beginning to explore LinkedIn, but definitely as I talk more about podcasting, that stuff I'm putting on LinkedIn because it's
Yeah.
applicable and it is my business.
Right.
I think I'm challenged a little bit more when I'm talking about Jumpstart Your Joy, which is a show that's more about creativity and finding joy and all. Like, yes, people at work need to find those things, but I think the tie through is always a little bit less clear for me on the joy show versus the podcasting show.
I've seen some conversations about that, like on some of the Facebook podcasting groups we're in, and people
Yeah.
are saying like, well, my listeners really aren't on LinkedIn. And that's quite possible, but I'm like, but maybe your collaborators or your sponsors are on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all. I think it's the interesting thing is to find the angle, especially if your show
Yeah.
is not specifically about like a business or about something that is in marketing or like all that. That is
You know,
interesting. And I do talk about it, and some things are a great fit, and I put those shows up for sure. Um, yeah. It's interesting. I think it's important to play with it because I think LinkedIn is, I mean, we're there live now, but like I think it's kind of the underdog of the socials right
yeah.
now. The other one that
I
can I oh go ahead.
yeah, go.
Another one that's not on our list, but is Pinterest. And Pinterest for podcasts is pretty powerful because it's a long tail game, which means it doesn't, especially if you have what one might call evergreen content, meaning it's about
Right.
things that are always pertinent. How to make a podcast, how to grow your business. These are evergreen contents. And people are searching for that stuff constantly on Pinterest, which is really just a search engine, but it's visual. Um, and I've found that a lot of people just keep coming on over to my website for these
So how do
things.
you make your podcast content visual for Pinterest?
I usually just use the headline. I change up the headline a little bit or the title of the show to kind of make it a little more of a hook, if you will, to make it, top 5 ways to like you make it there's a Pinterest, language about it. Um, and then sometimes people will share them and you get new listeners that way, especially when it's the older content. That's the stuff, even my first season, that's the stuff that is still catching on.
Mm.
People still love Danny Wood of New Kids on the Block and they want to hear from him. So that
I
one's
have
doing
I have
great.
not done anything
You
with
can try
Pinterest.
it. It's fun.
Yeah, I guess I should. I should try
Yeah.
it.
And then to schedule, what do you use? Do you schedule your posts or you guys
So, um,
do it real time?
not enough. So I've used Buffer, which I used
Mm,
to really
it's good.
like. Um, I like Buffer. But most of the stuff I'm posting is video, and most of the apps don't let you schedule native video ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I also like I'm still kind of organic-y in my social. Like I'm not super strategic. I'm like, I loved this episode. I had this insight from it. I want to share it. Um,
Yeah.
I just I really am more interested in the conversational part of it. Um, I'm not super strategic about sharing. For Spartan Up, the biggest we never started a Facebook page for the podcast for Spartan Up because there was already the company Spartan had a very large social media presence.
Mhm.
And we didn't really have that didn't make sense to just keep having all these little social media for all the little separate subcategories. The only
Right.
place that Spartan Up has its own presence is Twitter, which we don't do much, and Instagram, which we don't do much. So their most of their social is they do post like once a podcast episode becomes a blog post, then they'll share that on LinkedIn from Spartan Central. But I'm
Right.
not really doing that much of that stuff. I can get in there and comment and
Yeah.
a little bit. But so and then for me, like I personally post Spartan Up episodes on my personal LinkedIn, which is what I was going to say when you were talking about Jumpstart Your Joy, because it's really like it's motivation, self-improvement, but people respond to it well, even though it's not technically businessy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Spartan Up, but people, it people like it. I like it. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. Um, to schedule stuff, because so one of my one of my catchphrases this year is the future is scheduled. That's what I like to
mm,
say but to my client at the Egg Whisperer show, Dr. Amy, because we'd gotten into this thing where it was like, I mean, at first we were trying to go live with everything, which is fun, but when you've got schedules and patience and all that, it was like it became obvious that there wasn't too much of a differential when we were playing with algorithms, whether we were live or we were scheduled. And
Mhm.
and so scheduling is the way to go. And so of course to schedule videos on, and we could talk about this stuff, but like on Facebook or Instagram, you go to the creator studio within. I didn't realize you could schedule this stuff until like mid last year, and it's a game changer. So if you have to schedule a video, that's where. Um, but we use later for everything else. And also because we have a review cycle where some of this is medical information, and like it really does need to be reviewed by a doctor because I don't
Oh yeah,
I
right,
cannot
right,
recommend anything about IVF in any kind of good stead. So I can write it, but I can't
right. That
I
makes
don't
sense.
have the background. So we do schedule nearly everything on later. And that's interesting because my team is the team that does her social. So that's an interesting differential between the two of us
Yeah,
too.
yeah. Yeah, and I have done social professionally, but what's really interesting to me is that just like the podcasting apps, like even while I was working, so I was working as a consultant doing social. I was basically guiding the team that was doing, creating the assets and the posting, and then I was doing all the paid social for a gubernatorial campaign in Vermont.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, but even in the process of that campaign, probably 5 or 6 times, we had to address major changes in the platforms. And
Yeah.
so now it's been a couple years, like, I mean, I could tell you principles, but, um,
Yeah.
it just like, I think anybody who says they know what they're doing in there, unless they're doing it right now, does not know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and it does change really quickly. And I think it also changes by how many, like if you're a smaller account or a bigger
Mm,
account, like I've
mhm.
seen a tipping point.
Yeah,
Once we were past about 12,000, it's a different ball game altogether, and that's been super like fun and
yeah.
super interesting. But
So
yeah,
how has that changed? Or maybe that's a show, maybe we should do a whole episode on,
we
like,
could do on
promoting.
social, yeah, and promotion.
I
I feel
think
like this is a
promoting.
juicy territory.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we could
Because
talk
we
about that.
still have, gosh, we've been going for apparently 37 minutes and 20 seconds.
And we are not even to project
And
management, which
so
is
let's jump right there, right? Because
my
I think
zone
we've
of
covered
genius.
promotion. Let's go to project management.
Yeah.
Ready, set, go. So you have, did I put the exclamation points? We have Google Sheets with
You
4 exclamation points as our first one.
Google Sheets. I mean, I literal one of my each one of my clients I create a sheet for, which has, name, it has episode number, it has and then all the steps, like our entire workflow. And so any client at any time can log into their Google Sheet and see where every episode is. And then at the end, there's a link that's like, is the show notes or whatever, like wherever this thing lives. And so that's anybody could create that. And I think that's
Yeah.
super helpful because now with one of them, it's become our Bible. Religious studies major, I realize maybe that's not our best term, but it's our Bible. And we can then see what can we repurpose? Where did this go? How many times has this thing been repurposed? So documentation makes everything so much better. And this is another topic we could go on. I will try and slow down with, but I love, I love a good workflow. It's pretty sexy.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm with you. So we use Sheets. It's
Yeah.
This is so fun because we have like so much overlap, but so many differences too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we don't, not to like be like that, but I know we don't have a huge live audience right now, but I think there's a lot of people that this information would be so valuable for, like just seeing
Yeah.
how full-time professional people in this space are doing these things. I
Yeah.
think, I would have really loved to have this a few years ago.
Me
So we
too.
use Google Sheets. First of all, we have multiple series. And so what
Yeah.
I have is like one massive document with tabs, and it's
Hmm.
got schedule. So that one is like our schedule, and that has, it has a section for scheduling. So I know who the future guests are, but
Yep.
also primarily it has the schedule for each series. So like the Tuesday show has its own tab, and it has the name of the guest, the date that it plans to be published, what the topic is, and who the sponsor for that episode is. So the sponsorship department can write that information in there. And like you said, at the top of each page, there's a link to a Google Doc with the show notes for that
Yeah.
series, right? And then there's a tab for each series, and those are managed by like different producers. Like the producer for another series will, fill in their information. And then there's a master calendar that has like a calendar format as the first tab. And so it'll have color coded like what's on Tuesday, what's on Thursday, what's on Friday of each series. Like, so it's at a
Wow.
glance what the week looks like. And then there's a separate, the other place I use Google Sheets is to collect information. So I have a Google
Mhm.
form. So
Yep.
if you're a guest on the show, you fill out the form with your relevant information. So we make sure like we'll share the correct links, we collect photos, like all of that, and that populates a spreadsheet. And then the
So smart.
other place is for guest outreach because I can't remember all this stuff.
No,
So
especially
like,
when you have a show as big as either of the or even like my
right,
own weekly show. Like, I don't know. When did they reply?
yeah.
I don't know.
So we have a wish list, and then
Yeah.
there's tabs. There's like fields for like status of the outreach. Who reached out to them, when did they reply, what did they say, do we need to reach back out, like all of that. And then I've messed around with Notion with like a Kanban board for guests.
Yeah.
And it has like each new guest, it's like review. So if somebody suggests a guest, they're in one area and it's like, I'm going to review them and then I'll move them into like invited and then I'll move them into replied. But what I've found is even though that's really efficient and clear, I don't like everything is on the one Google sheet. And so I go to
Yeah.
that every day. Like the Notion board is slick and everything, but it'll get out of date because I just like I don't go there
Yeah.
every day.
Isn't that amazing? I have that same experience where like the Bible spreadsheet, yep, that's it. Um, I have a couple other things and we track since we're creating all the social for the accounts as well. All of that goes in a Google Doc so that our stakeholder, if you're using project management terms, or the client can review it. She can make changes live, real time in the documents. We send all of our show notes again because we're interviewing in that series or a lot of doctors. So we want to make sure they've seen the transcripts of things before we put it on our
Mm,
website. So a lot of those folks are reviewing things in a Google Doc as well. And they can just make the updates on the fly. And then I can see what they changed. If they changed, a bunch of stuff that was like you didn't even you weren't the one that was speaking, sometimes we roll them back, if it was actually my client that
right,
said them.
right.
So there's that. But we also or I also I went all in on Basecamp, which is a
God, I
project
hate
management
this
tool.
camp.
You hate
I hate
Basecamp?
this
See, I think that
camp.
it's like one of those different things because I knew I wanted to craft my own workflows. I
Mm.
create a template and then I just keep duplicating it. Um, so I
For
think
every
it's
episode or for every show client, or how do you do that?
yeah, both. Yeah, for
Yeah.
every episode. And then I don't forget stuff.
Right.
And I'm also Basecamp becomes super helpful when you have people working on your with you on a team. So
Yeah.
I put everything that goes out to the editor that helps me. I also have an assistant that helps me. So like they get assigned these tasks and
Yeah.
then I don't have to keep it in my brain because my brain isn't going to remember all these little
No, that's
details
smart. Like
where
what
they are.
happens is I have a horrible time training a new person because everything is like not structured like that. And then once they're
Yeah.
trained, they do everything and I don't have to worry about it. So
Yeah.
that's like, but the transition of new assistants and new editors and stuff is not great because
Yeah.
it'll be like a random list of scribbled things that they don't understand.
Well, and isn't it interesting too that like you said the Kanban boards you don't go or in Notion that you don't go back. Like
Yeah.
I do have to mindfully go back into Basecamp once a
Yeah.
week, check off
Right.
what's done or move it to the next thing. And it's
Yeah.
it's it's an extra step, but I feel like it keeps me sane, which is needed.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm very fortunate that the people who I have helping me are pretty like wind them up and they go.
That's
And
good.
so the hardest part I have is reminding them to reach, like, if anything is different, sometimes all of a sudden there's an episode up and I'm like, what is this? And they're like, oh, this broke and I had to fix this. And we did like a completely different thing. And I'm like, you have to tell me when that
We
happens.
just can't
You
we
can't
just
just
can't
like,
go off into the
yeah.
weeds and pick a
Yeah.
random episode.
So
Yeah.
there's a little bit like the good part is they're totally self-directed and they're
That's good.
problem solvers. But sometimes I got to be like, wait, hold
Yeah.
on. Yeah. All right. So we have Google Sheets, Dropbox. It says we both use that. How do you use Dropbox?
Well, I mean, it really is mirroring what like a shared drive would be is, if we were all in the same office, and there's a marketing drive, and then I organize it by client, and then by season, and then by episode. And I mean, I'm kind of a stickler because everything gets named and numbered, and we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually by a unique identifier because we don't put our episode numbers on it until like kind of the last minute because stuff
Right.
might
Because you
shift
don't know if you're going to
depending.
shuffle. Right.
Yeah. That we're like, yeah, because that's a bad idea. But so it will always have, it's usually the guest name. And if I need another, like if they've been on a third time, then it's like, John Smith 3 or whatever. So that's how, and Dropbox usually gets, I mean, we share our video files then again with our guests if they want to upload it to IGTV, because you can't do that easily
Right.
without a raw file, or, the edited, but the actual file. Um, yeah, and then there's other stuff there. We also use Google Drive in a similar way because it's easier for some clients to access.
Really.
So it kind of, yeah. So mostly it's audio or video files that go between the team
Right.
that we're using
Right.
Dropbox for. How about you?
So I've started to use Dropbox in a couple different ways. One, all the ways that you're saying, right? And
Yeah.
then I do the file request. I love the file request thing. So you can set up like a file request, and you just give someone a link who doesn't have Dropbox, and they can
Right.
just drag and drop. So that's actually currently how we collect photos, even though we use a Google form, because
Yeah.
there was a bunch of like there's a bunch of security stuff, which I'm sure is great in Google, but it just was getting like we kept getting errors and people
It
couldn't
gets
upload things.
clunky.
And so I use Dropbox for that. The other thing is that if you give someone a Dropbox link, they can actually play the file. Like there's an
Yeah.
audio player. So so I'll review stuff that way, and I'll
Hmm.
share stuff for review, like video and audio. A lot of the time I'll share it for review right out of Dropbox, like with just
Yeah.
a Dropbox link. I also use it to share all the sponsor ads with the other editors of the other series. So, I have them all like, by name and file that are in there. And that's another place we use Google Drive to coordinate all the sponsorship assets and all that. And what else do we use Dropbox for? I don't know. I really like Dropbox.
Yeah, I didn't used to, but once I figured out how to not have it store locally, like, and I also
Yes,
archive
right, right.
stuff. Anything that's active is also archived on my local drive, I guess. And then once it's already produced and it's out of the
Yeah,
cycle, then we dump it into the a different folder basically on
yeah,
Dropbox. So we
right.
know it's saved, it's out there, but it doesn't take up space. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
I
other
like
great
Dropbox
thing
a lot.
the other reason I like it is I have a Mac in my office that I do the editing on, but if I'm traveling
Hmm.
and I wanna update and edit or fix something, it's on a PC laptop. And so Dropbox allows me to have, like, all the files and all the Adobe projects in Dropbox, and I can just open them on my other
Yeah,
computer.
yeah.
So that's huge.
We love you, Dropbox.
We love you, Dropbox. All right, we have Google Docs. We kinda talked about that. Slack, Notion, Basecamp. We've kinda covered all that.
I
Slack
think
is
so.
just chat,
Yeah.
chat. All right. So, and then actually the next one, client review, YouTube and Dropbox. I don't know. What do you use
Yeah.
for client review? Do you use any of the special things? There's
I
like a
don't.
film.io or something like that, which is pretty cool. It lets you like put time coded comments on videos, but I
Yeah.
don't use any of that.
I think that comes I don't know if this is quite the reflection I have on it, but I feel like when a relationship with a client is new, there's a lot more of that needed, like, this is how they want it. This you get to know their style, you get to know,
Yeah.
and then once, I mean, because it's been several years at this point, I'm mostly at the point where the clients trust me and they don't
Right.
necessarily need to hear the whole thing, or they don't need to hear it at all, which God bless them. I'm so glad we have that relationship. It means the world to me. And I think everyone recognizes that once you can trust your producer or your editor, it's actually a lot less back and forth and probably cheaper, right? Like
Right. Well,
we
it's
can
also just
all.
like so much less work. Like, but it
Mhm.
does take a while because it's not even like
Yeah.
even a great editor, it just takes them a while to know what you want, right? Because it's
Yeah.
an expression of, your point of view. So,
Yeah, exactly.
all
And
right.
so I think, I mean, any reviews, we're reviewing more written word and copy stuff than we are
Mm,
audio or video. So all that's Google Docs or
yeah,
sometimes some other things, but it's so niched we don't need to talk about it.
yeah, yeah. All
Now
right. So
everybody's like, what are
then
you doing? What's the niche thing?
So it's top secret, and you have to tune in next time to the next
Yes.
birdcast.
When we talk about niched reviews.
Yeah. And anyone who's bird track certified would know, and we'll happy to share that information if anyone's
Yeah,
interested.
just get in touch.
Yeah,
Birdtrackscollective.com.
Right. So scheduling. Let's talk about that. You have Calendly.
I love that Calendly.
Yeah.
I have one for myself and I have one for a client. And I love it because Calendly is one of those things that was beta, and sometimes beta things never grow past their beta-ness, right? Like they just stay in whatever that really kind of pre-launch thing is. But Calendly has done a really good job of furthering what their tool does. So why I love it, it integrates with a Google or Gmail account. So once, or your Google Calendars, or probably Outlook. But once somebody books something, then it blocks itself off. So then there's none of that weirdness of, oh, I wasn't really available. Like, it's really good. They've also recently, in the last, maybe not that recently, but they let you set up some things, like some specific, you can set a kind of an appointment, and then it will let you charge through Calendly. So as they book, I mean, this would be better if you're doing a consultancy. I don't charge, let's be clear, not charging for guests on my show, but you could set it up so that it charges your hourly rate or whatever. And I like that. It also does do a workflow thing, and they've added even more, but you can set up sets of questions that you want them to answer up front. So that's where we ask for your site, your socials. Is there anything you want to make sure we cover in this interview? And it then sends out reminders. And truthfully, I've never had someone without like kind of a last minute emergency not show up, right? Like, because they got the thing that, 2 hours before you're on, like, let's do this. So yeah, I love that Calendly. But you like HoneyBook?
Well, so I used, talk about the beta phase, right? I had a bad experience with Calendly, and it was totally because I had a very weird use case. So I was on the East Coast, and I was scheduling in-person podcasting appointments on the West Coast.
Wow.
And so it thought it wasn't good. So
I'm so sorry. I can only imagine.
Yeah. The time zone scenario, like, it's good at translating time zones. But when I said 1:00, even though I was in Vermont, I meant 1:00 in LA because that's where the appointment was. And so it changed all the appointments, and it was quite messy because we had some pretty big name people. We had Rich Roll. We had a bunch of people coming to be on the show and meet us at Dodger Stadium in LA. And a lot, we did figure it out before the actual day of, but it just felt very unprofessional because I had to be emailing them. They were like, wait, I thought we were at 1. I just got a notification saying it's at 6. And I'm like, nope, you're at 1. And it was just, and then I had to like cancel it and reschedule it. So ever since then, I hate Calendly, and it's not their fault, I'm sure. But I use HoneyBook, and HoneyBook is like, it's an all-in-one kind of a CRM thing. And the scheduling is like a minor piece of it, really. But I like it because I can set up all different kinds of appointments. I think like Calendly, like I have my appointments for interviews, and those are like longer. They have access to different time slots, and they include the links to like the Riverside link. Whereas a consulting meeting, there's like the 15-minute for a check-in, and there's like the hour-long or even a 90-minute, and those include the Zoom link, and they all connect to the person and their project. Yeah. So if I click Paula, it will show like your appointment under your name. And so I like that. I'm still learning how to use it, and there's a lot of stuff. It seems like it's good for a small independent business person, and it does let you collect money through it. So like if I have a consulting, not through the appointment, but through the program. So I've been using that, but I think I have a lot to learn. Yeah. To make it efficient. So we have gone 54 minutes and 24 seconds. We have had 0 comments.
We are shocked.
I wonder if anyone's listening.
I don't know.
Is there a way to find out?
I'm glad we talked. I feel like I've learned
I learned so much. Yeah. No, it was super
So
helpful for me.
Well, so leave
I
us some
shouldn't.
comments.
I
Comments.
know. God, if you're watching, comment. I think I said this last time, but I'm starting to really mean it now. Um, if you guys are not watching, or you gals, or you folks are not
Anyone.
watching,
Yeah.
anyone, people or animals, if you are not watching, or birds,
Birds.
um, if if you are not watching, then we're gonna do this without you because then we can be super snarky, right?
Way
Which
snarky.
we can be way more snarky if you're not listening. But like honestly, I feel like I would have wanted this. This
I would have
information is
too.
so good. I mean, we've been doing this a long I just talked to my friend Rich Cardona, and he's like a podcast dude. He's great. And he went to oh gosh, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. He went to a big podcasting conference and basically said what I'm sure you've experienced, which is a lot of the sessions were stuff he already knew, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, or even worse, he didn't say this. I'm saying this. Even worse, there's sessions that are not exactly wrong, but it's like something somebody learned from another session. It's
Mhm.
not what they learned from their own experience. They're not actually in there doing the stuff. And I
Right.
think the fact that you and I are like, we do this every day. This is how we make a living. Like, this is what we do.
Yeah, I
Um,
closed most of those applications to talk to you. Literally, like, there goes Descript, there goes Audacity, there goes
right,
Later,
right,
like, closed them all.
exactly. Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
yeah, and
I
I think there's something too where people, when you go to some of those, it's like it's aspirational. It's not necessarily like hands-on. These are the folks. I mean, maybe they do it, but people seem to feel like they got to talk about lofty topics or something, and you're like, please stop. Like, yeah, we all know we want to grow and that we should all pitch to be on other shows. Like, we get it. But like, what are we actually doing day by day? This stuff.
right.
This stuff.
Right. This stuff, right. And yeah, there's a place for strategy, right? But I
It's
think
fun.
that it's almost like the strategy is more one-on-one. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
strategy is more personal. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go, but I'm thinking about it and saying like
Mm-mm.
the tools, like anybody can learn the tool stuff. Like we could have this conversation and no matter what kind of podcast you have, this would be useful. The
Right.
strategy, like somebody needs to really ask you questions and
And it's
understand what you're
dependent on
trying
the
to
show.
do. Right.
And even like what we talked about a couple weeks ago, when you went back to like saying, it depends on your purpose. Like, what's your
Yeah,
why
right.
here? The strategy
Exactly.
comes out of that. Not, I
Yeah.
mean, but everybody, yes, everybody needs an editing tool. I can't
Yeah.
believe we didn't talk about hosting. Do you host on Libsyn? Sounds like it.
I do, but I've been thinking about changing.
Don't tell Rob. Just
So
kidding.
I love Rob and Elsie,
I know
of
they're
course.
amazing.
Um, but one of the things I think is really cool that Buzzsprout has is the what do they call it? You can do live. They call it dynamic content.
Oh, interesting.
So you know how you could do like dynamic ad insertion, but they have dynamic content. So if you have a podcast and you have evergreen content, you can do a dynamic content open and close through Buzzsprout. And so you could say like, I have an event coming up on January 30th, and you could run that ad on all your
As
evergreen
your
content.
intro.
Or it doesn't even have to be an ad. It could just be like, hey, it's fall and you should wear a coat. Like
Right.
you could do whatever you want, but it has it built in. It doesn't cost anything extra, and it's like built
Amazing.
into Buzzsprout. That seems amazing to me. And then a lot of people have been talking about what's the one that Mark Asquith's hosting
I don't know that
platform?
name.
That's like it's like a growth focused platform. And I'm not sure
Mhm.
really what the difference is, but I know that
Yeah.
one of the things I saw in there that was cool was it lets you share your stats in like an easy format for your
That'd be neat.
sponsorships,
Yeah.
right?
Because
And
I
then
feel like that answers a question too around like what are sponsors looking, and if you're just like, here's the stuff, like,
yeah,
yeah,
and you do a screen grab or something, it's kind of messy.
it's a mess. Yeah.
Libsyn though, I love Libsyn 5 has the 7-day or the 10-day and the 30-day, which is
Oh, I'm
huge.
gonna have to upgrade then. I just
That
haven't even
is
looked at the 5.
You don't even have to upgrade it. You just do 5.libsyn.com and you log in with your regular login and you can see the
Nice.
new interface.
I'm gonna go look.
And the 10-day and 30-day is like
That's
I
a game
think
changer.
life-changing. Yeah, for
Mhm.
podcasters
Yeah.
because I had to download spreadsheets and like it was very
And you're
hard to pull
tracking
that
stuff and you're like,
information.
Yeah, because then you have to set the time frame and
Yeah.
pull the and yes, and God knows
Yeah.
we were all sending those to clients. Be like, "Here's
Right.
your 30-day," and it's
And
just
you
took me
want
5
like, that's
hours.
the most like, it's so important. Like, the 10-day tells you what titles people like.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it tells you what your topics should be. So,
And what you should do more of
um,
for sure.
and then, Libsyn has the, partnership with Glow, and they have,
They have a
which is gonna
lot
be
of
very
good
cool.
partnerships.
I haven't really seen it. It's not happening yet, but
Right. Yeah.
so
But they are a big enough entity that they tend to also get those early integrations with other platforms, so you don't have to go apply, and what
right,
I mean by
right.
that is, like, places that I don't even
Like
know,
when
I can't
Google
think of them.
started like Spotify. When
Right,
Spotify
Spotify or
first started
Radio
carrying podcasts.
FM or
Right.
any of those things where you want your show to actually show up
Yeah.
on, now you can just set it as a destination on Libsyn and it
Right.
goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we have
I
really
think
done
there's
this.
we have really done this. It's been an hour, so I think we should wrap up. The one thing I wanted to say, if anybody has watched this entire thing, it's very rough, but we have like a little Google sheet that we put all of the tools in. It's just a list. It's not like links. It's not fancy, but if you'd
Oh,
like
yeah, we
it,
could
just
share it.
direct message either of us, and we'll send that to you if you want that list. And we'll be back with another Birdcast. But listen, even if you watch not live, you better write a comment.
We wanna
You
hear.
better.
You
'Cause
got
otherwise,
questions.
we're doing this without you, for real.
You're just gonna keep going.
All right, I'm
Oh,
signing
very
off.
good.